The cafe door swung open, the soft jingle of the bell trailing behind it. Victor looked up, expecting a grown woman to walk in. But no. A little girl around 5 sprinted toward him, her dress slightly crooked, her 2 pigtails bouncing like they were keeping rhythm. She stopped in front of him, breathless, then lifted her head with an expression more determined than most adults he knew. "Mom is sick, so I came instead." Her clear little voice rang out so sharply that a spoon slipped from a customer's hand at the next table. The whole cafe fell silent. Victor froze for a few seconds, staring at the child as if reality had suddenly veered into a direction no one warned him about. The blind date Reed had forced him to attend was now starting with a random little girl claiming she came in her mother's place. And right then, Victor knew tonight would be nothing like any night he had lived through in the last 3 years. Victor Hale was not the kind of man who was easily surprised, but life always finds a way to throw even the most steady people into the most unexpected situations. At 38, he had built a logistics corporation that operated across multiple countries. That success did not come from luck. It came from years spent working in warehouses, putting in twice the effort of everyone around him, and teaching himself every skill he needed to climb up. Victor grew up poor, once living in a rented room so cramped he had to lean sideways just to open the fridge. Now, even as a millionaire, his old habits stayed with him. He chose clothes that were simple, clean, and refined without a hint of flash. His posture was always straight, a bit guarded, like someone used to keeping the world at a distance. Anyone who looked at him would notice one thing right away. He did not smile much. A smile to Victor was a resource to protect, something he rarely used. 4 years ago, his fiancée died in an accident just days before their wedding. That loss pushed Victor into a darkness deeper than anywhere he had ever been. No one could pull him out of it, so he buried himself in work. 3 years later, he had become a polite but hollow version of himself. He did not open up, did not date, did not go to the networking parties his friends kept inviting him to. The only person he allowed into his private life was Reed, his best friend since their days hauling crates for a living. Reed was the type who never worried about offending anyone, especially Victor. For months, Reed kept pushing him to meet someone new. "Just go talk. No one's asking you to get married," Reed said at least 5 times. Eventually, Victor agreed to one blind date. Reed picked a small cafe tucked inside a quiet neighborhood. According to him, the owner was an old friend who knew a gentle, hardworking woman who genuinely wanted to start over. Victor expected nothing. He saw it as a breathing exercise, literally. A single attempt to crack the door to his heart after 4 frozen years. The date was set for the weekend, when the cafe was never too crowded. Victor arrived 10 minutes early and chose a table by the window. The late afternoon light settled softly over the wooden surface, creating an atmosphere that felt strangely unfamiliar to a man used to schedules and emails. He checked his watch, making sure he had the time right. The woman he was supposed to meet was named Nora Bennett. The cafe owner had described her as frugal, independent, and resilient. Victor did not think much of it, but Reed's determination made him try to stay a little more open. As for Nora, she had never planned on going to a blind date. At 32, she worked as a teaching assistant at a craft center. The job did not pay much, but it was enough for her to raise her daughter and keep her pride intact. Nora's husband had died in a work accident 3 years earlier. Since then, she had been both mother and father, constantly racing against the worries of daily life. When the cafe owner suggested the blind date, Nora laughed it off. But that night, after a long day at work, she felt her body heating up, her throat burning, her cough non-stop. She meant to text and apologize, reschedule, do the polite thing. Instead, the moment she picked up her phone, she sank into the chair and fell asleep from the fever. Lily, Nora's daughter, heard everything. The 5-year-old always noticed her mother in ways adults rarely do. Lily saw the cough, the tired red eyes, the shoulders growing thinner inside an old sweater. When she heard her mom mumble, "I have to meet someone tomorrow. He's probably nice, but I'm so tired," Lily understood it the way children do. She thought that man might make her mom happy. Lily had no idea what a blind date was. To her, it was simply a meeting that could make grown-ups less sad. That night, while Nora slept heavily from the fever, Lily sat hugging her teddy bear, thinking for a long time. And the next morning, she decided to put on her prettiest dress, tie her hair into 2 crooked pigtails, and go to the address her mom mentioned the night before. Inside the cafe, Victor had never felt time move so slowly. He checked his phone. No text. No call. Maybe he had been stood up. Perfectly normal, he told himself and started to rise from his seat. But the moment his hand touched the chair, the cafe door swung open. The small bell chimed, but that sound meant nothing compared to the sight that followed it. A little girl burst inside, breathing hard, her bright eyes set with firm determination. She looked around, spotted Victor, the only person sitting at a table for two, and sprinted straight toward him as if she knew exactly who she was looking for. She planted both hands on the table and said each word with crystal clarity. "Mom is sick, so I came instead." Victor froze. A customer at the next table dropped their spoon. The barista held their breath. It felt like someone had pressed pause on the entire cafe. Victor lowered his gaze to the girl. Lily's eyes showed no fear of strangers, no hesitation, only trust, as if this was the most reasonable thing in the world. A child had walked into his blind date and announced she was here in her mother's place. How could he not be startled? In that moment, Victor felt something he had not felt in years. His life, which had been standing still for so long, had just been nudged off its axis. Lily's arrival squeezed the air in the cafe into a single strange, unbelievable moment. Victor still had no idea how to react when the little girl pulled out a chair and climbed onto it, sitting across from him as if this had been the plan all along. He blinked a few times, then asked softly, his voice careful as though he might scare her off. "You really came here?" Lily nodded hard, her uneven pigtails bouncing with the motion. "Yes, I'm Lily Bennett. I came instead of my mom." She said it with a seriousness that didn't match the tiny cream dress twisting around her knees. Victor leaned in a little, trying to find a reasonable explanation, but Lily was already one step ahead of him. "I think if Mom meets someone nice, she'll be happier." She placed both hands on the table and looked up at him with the clearest eyes he had ever seen. "Mom's sad a lot." The way Lily spoke felt like someone had just knocked straight into the wall. Victor had spent years building around himself. A 5-year-old, confident like a grown-up, had chosen him as the person who might make her mom feel better. He had no idea how to respond. Feeling awkward was rare for someone used to managing thousands of employees, but tonight, Victor was truly out of his depth. He took a slow breath and asked, "Why do you think I'm a good person?" "Because..." Lily propped her chin on her hand, thinking, then answered as casually as ever. "You sit up straight, you're not frowning, and you're not looking at your phone. Bad people look at their phones all the time." The innocent line pulled a small laugh out of Victor, soft but real. Lily went on as if she were reporting something important. "My mom works really late every night. Her back hurts a lot, and she cries too." Victor paused. "Your mom cries?" Lily nodded. "In the kitchen. Mom thinks I'm asleep, so she cries. But I see her. She holds a towel and turns her face away. I don't say anything because I know she's sad about the rent, and because she misses Dad." Victor's hand tightened slightly. He never expected a 5-year-old to understand her mother this deeply. Lily's words hit him hard. A memory surfaced of his fiancée standing in their tiny old kitchen, shaking from the weight of life. The old grief came back, not sharp enough to suffocate him, but enough to make him want to listen. Victor lowered his voice, gentler now. "You're very good at talking, Lily." "I have to be good." Lily lifted her shoulders. "If I'm not good, Mom will worry." Victor felt something inside his chest loosen just a bit. He signaled a server, ordered a warm milk for Lily, then asked softly, "Do you know what a blind date is?" Lily took a sip of warm milk, a white mustache still on her lip, but her eyes had turned serious. "I think it's when grown-ups meet so they won't be sad anymore." The answer caught Victor off guard, not because it was right or wrong, but because a child could interpret adult emotions in a way so simple yet painfully accurate. He nodded, neither correcting nor explaining. He just accepted it. But as their slow conversation settled into place, a thought flashed through Victor's mind and chilled him. He asked, "Lily, who brought you here?" "No one," Lily answered immediately. "I walked. It's very close." Victor straightened in his seat. "You walked here alone?" She nodded as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Victor's pulse kicked. A wave of unease rose faster than he could steady it. A little girl walking alone through several streets to a cafe to meet a stranger? To Lily, it was brave, something she did for her mom. To Victor, it was dangerous. He looked at the tiny child sitting across from him, her feet not even touching the floor, and his chest felt heavy. "You can't do that again, Lily," he said gently but firmly. It's very dangerous. Do you understand? Lily lowered her head to the table. But I had to come. If Mom meets someone good, she'll be happy. The small voice made Victor pause for several seconds. Her stubborn love for her mother left him both worried and impressed. He exhaled and softened his tone. You love your mom a lot, don't you? Yes, Lily replied without a moment of doubt. Lily reached into the pocket of her dress and pulled out a small knitted charm, a soft shade of lavender. This is a bracelet I made. Mom taught me, she said. Lily held it out to Victor. She only gives it to someone who makes her happy. Victor took the knitted bracelet. The yarn was soft, uneven, but warm in a way that settled into his palm, as if it still carried the touch of the child who made it. He knew this wasn't just a trinket. It felt like Lily was handing him a message, maybe even a piece of the quiet world she and her mother were trying so hard to hold together. Before he could say anything, the cafe door swung open again. An older woman rushed in, face tight with worry, eyes scanning the room until they landed on Lily. Lily, oh my goodness, what are you doing here? She was breathing hard. I stepped onto the balcony and saw you walking off the block. I ran after you, but you were gone. Lily lit up. Mrs. Marcia. Mrs. Marcia looked at Victor, then bowed her head apologetically. I live in the same building as them. I thought she was just heading to the little playground out front. I had no idea she wandered this far. I'm so sorry. She didn't bother you, did she? Victor shook his head right away. Not at all. I was just worried about her. Mrs. Marcia thanked him again and again as she took Lily's hand and led her out. Lily kept looking back, waving with a mix of regret and attachment, as if afraid she had not said everything she needed to say. When they were gone, Victor stayed seated. The tiny knitted bracelet was still in his hand. He stared at it for a long while. He was not angry, not bothered, not even disappointed that the blind date had fallen apart. What he felt instead was a strange warmth, a feeling that slowed his heartbeat, like someone had opened a small door inside the ice he had been carrying for years. This strange blind date, with a child showing up in her mother's place, had done something no one had managed to do in 4 years. It made Victor's heart start moving again. The strange meeting with Lily left Victor with a feeling he could not put into words, like someone had placed a tiny stone in his palm and vanished, leaving him unable to let it go. The entire evening, he could not focus on anything. Even with a packed schedule, Lily's image kept slipping into his thoughts, along with her quiet line. Mom sat a lot, repeating over and over in his head. By the next morning, after wrestling with himself for a while, Victor decided to do something he had never done after any blind date. He went looking for the address of the woman he had never even met. The cafe owner could not hide her surprise when Victor returned. But after hearing him say he only wanted to make sure Nora was not seriously ill, she stayed silent for a few seconds, then handed him a small piece of paper with the address written on it. Victor thanked her and walked out before she had the chance to ask anything more. The reason he went to Nora's place was not to interfere, and definitely not to act like some hero stepping into the lives of a mother and her child. He only wanted to know whether the woman whom Lily trusted so much she ran out to take her place was doing all right. A simple intention, but more genuine than any decision he had made in years. The place Nora lived in was a row of old apartments along a small inner street. The paint on the walls faded with time. The wooden stairs creaked softly under his steps. The surroundings were clean but cramped, the kind of space that spoke of the everyday struggles most young families quietly battled through. Victor stood in front of the wooden door, holding a bag of food. From inside, he heard a faint cough, then soft footsteps. When the door opened, he saw Nora for the first time. She stood there in clothes that hung a little too loosely on her already thin frame, her hair tied up in a rushed knot, cheeks flushed from the fever. Her first look wasn't confusion or surprise. It was caution, the kind a single mother carries everywhere, ready for anything. "Who are you?" Nora asked, her voice rough but still trying to stay polite. Victor tilted his head slightly, speaking as gently as he could. "I'm Victor. I met Lily last night." The moment he said it, Nora's expression changed. "You saw her? Where? Last night?" She was so startled she forgot to even close the door. Victor gave a brief explanation about Lily showing up at the cafe. The whole time he spoke, Nora didn't move, her face draining of color. When he finished, her shoulders trembled just a little. I didn't know she left. I fell asleep because of the fever," Nora pressed a hand to her forehead, as if holding herself together. Oh God! She went outside alone. Victor stepped in quickly, trying to calm her. She's all right, she was safe. A neighbor followed her and brought her back. But Nora didn't seem to hear the last part. She lowered her head, her eyes shining. Lily, she's so little, but she thinks about everything. She shouldn't have to worry about me like that. Victor stayed quiet for a few seconds to let her steady her breathing. Then he told her everything Lily had said at the cafe. Every small detail about her late nights, her back pain, and the tears she shed alone in the kitchen. By the time he finished, Nora couldn't hold it anymore. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She covered her mouth, caught between shame, heartbreak, and the ache of knowing her daughter had seen far too much for a 5-year-old. I thought I hid it from her. Nora whispered. She sees more than you think. Victor answered softly. The silence lingered for a moment before Victor lifted the bag of food. I just brought something to eat. I heard you were sick. Nora took it, bowing her head in a thank you so soft it was barely audible. A small creak came from behind her. Lily peeked out from the bedroom doorway, hair messy, eyes still sleepy. But the second she saw Victor, her face lit up. She ran over and wrapped her tiny arms around him. You're the only person Mom talked to today, Lily said like it was the most normal thing in the world. The line sent a flush racing up Nora's cheeks, while Victor froze for a few seconds. No one was ready for that moment, but Lily's honest affection shattered every bit of distance between them. Nora sank onto a chair near the door, and Victor let Lily hold his hand, as if they had known each other for years. When he noticed the loose door latch, he asked, "Want me to fix this? It's a little dangerous." Nora almost refused out of habit, but in a brief moment she changed her mind. If you don't mind." Victor fixed the latch with the careful hands of someone used to doing everything himself. When he finished, Nora watched him for a few extra seconds, as if wanting to thank him, but not yet finding the right words. In the days that followed, Victor somehow kept running into the two of them so often that even he started wondering if it was truly coincidence. The first time was at the neighborhood grocery store. Victor walked in and immediately spotted Lily beside her mother, holding a small basket with both hands. Lily cheerfully announced she was helping her mom pick cheaper vegetables. The pride in her voice made Victor laugh, and Nora could only apologize in embarrassment for her daughter's noisiness. But Victor wasn't bothered at all. In fact, he felt something warm settle in him again. The second time was at the nearby playground. Lily had scraped her knee while running with the other kids. Nora was fumbling for a bandage when Victor happened to walk by. He knelt and cleaned the wound gently, and Lily went unusually quiet, trying very hard to look brave. Nora stood next to them, her eyes a mix of gratitude and embarrassment. The third time was on a rainy afternoon. Victor saw Nora holding Lily under the bus stop roof, their thin clothes soaked, Lily shivering in her arms. Their bus had been canceled. Victor pulled over right away. Nora tried to refuse at first, but Lily's eyes, half cold from the rain and half hopeful, made her nod. He drove them home, saying very little, but somehow that quiet made Nora feel safe. The more he saw them, the more Victor realized Lily hadn't been exaggerating. Nora truly was struggling, not just with money, but with work too. One afternoon when Victor stopped by the craft center, where Nora worked to return Lily's forgotten knitted scarf, he accidentally overheard a conversation between staff members. Nora was being pressured by her manager, not because of her performance, but because he favored a newer employee. She was on the verge of having her hours cut, which meant losing income she couldn't afford to lose. That night, Lily seemed more downcast than usual. She tried to hide it from her mom, but ended up telling Victor that some kids teased her for not having a dad to drive her to school. She tried to say it casually, but her blinking gave her away. Victor went still. He wanted to fix everything for both of them right then, but he stopped himself. He knew Nora had strong pride, and she wouldn't accept charity or handouts. So instead of giving money or arranging a new job, Victor chose a different path. He showed Nora how to document every instance of unfair treatment. He coached her to speak with clarity and confidence. He even practiced with her, helping her learn how to push back and protect her rights without starting a conflict. And every time she grew anxious, he repeated, "You're allowed to stand up for yourself." Nora listened quietly, surprised that Victor never once suggested using connections or money. He simply helped her become stronger. Lily sat beside them with her legs swinging, chiming in now and then. "He's right, Mom. Whatever he says, you have to do it." The line made Nora blush and Victor laugh under his breath. Through all those coincidental meetings, a thread began to form between them. Not loud, not rushed, but built from small moments, real moments, deep enough to soften the hearts of people who had been tired for far too long. In the weeks after Victor helped Nora build the skills to defend herself, the air in the small apartment seemed a little lighter. But life does not always reward effort, and sometimes the thing people fear most shows up right when they finally dare to hope. That morning, Nora walked into the craft center with cautious determination. She had prepared herself for a discussion with her manager. But instead of a conversation, she was called into the office immediately. "We've decided to terminate your contract." The manager said it flatly, without even looking at her. Nora froze. "Why? I do my job. I show up every day. I don't take leave. Lack of productivity." He cut her off. "We need someone faster." That excuse was as thin as paper, and Nora knew it. There was a flicker of satisfaction in the manager's eyes that he didn't bother to hide. She realized she never had a real chance to defend herself. The decision had been made long before she walked in. This meeting was just a formality. Nora stepped out of the center with her final paycheck in hand. The sky felt heavy, and her legs almost buckled beneath her. 3 years of fighting to keep life steady for her and her daughter, wiped out with a single signature from someone who held all the power. When Nora returned home, Lily was coloring at the table. The moment she saw her mother walk in without a word, she rushed over. Nora tried to steady her breath, but her lips trembled too much to hide the heartbreak. "Mom, what happened?" Lily asked softly. Nora sank into a chair, her hands falling limp at her sides. "I lost my job." Lily blinked a few times, then wrapped her arms around her mother with all the strength she had. Her small voice cracked but stayed clear. "I just wanted you to be happier. How did it turn into this?" The question broke something inside Nora. She clung to her daughter, trying to swallow the sobs so she wouldn't scare her. But the tears kept coming. Failure, guilt, and helplessness closed in on her all at once. Victor showed up that afternoon. Not because Lily called, and not because anyone told him. He came because of a gut feeling. One that had rarely been wrong since the day he met the two of them. When Nora opened the door, her face was pale and her eyes were red. Lily stood behind her, holding the teddy bear she only clutched when she felt unsafe. Victor saw all of it and didn't ask a single question. He stepped inside, sat on the chair by the kitchen table, and waited. Nora didn't have to explain, but eventually she did. Her voice was small, breaking in places. The more she spoke, the more her shoulders trembled. But Victor didn't interrupt with advice or solutions. He simply sat there, taking in every piece of pain and humiliation she had been carrying. To Victor, this wasn't the moment to offer fixes or connections. This was the moment to stay beside her. And he understood that so clearly he had never felt this calm in his life. When Nora finished, the only sound left in the room was Lily's soft breathing behind her. Victor spoke quietly. "You don't have to be strong all day." The words made Nora lower her head, and the tears returned. But this time she didn't try to hide them. She let the knot in her chest loosen and fall, letting herself feel sad without apologizing for it. But things didn't end there. 2 days later, rumors started spreading around the building. Mrs. Marcia happened to overhear a few of Nora's former co-workers talking outside the center. The manager, the same man who pushed Nora out, hadn't just fired her. He had started a rumor that Nora was seeing a rich man and wanted to rely on him. They claimed she had been picked up in a luxury car, that she was looking for a sugar daddy to change her life, and that her firing was just an excuse. The rumor spread fast, and when it reached Nora, it hit harder than losing her job. That evening, Victor came by, but Nora didn't open the door the way she usually did. She stood in the doorway, fingers gripping the wooden frame, her eyes red from anger and humiliation. "You shouldn't come here anymore," Nora said. She tried to keep her voice steady, but the hurt still bled through. "Everything got worse because of you." Victor stared, stunned, but before he could answer, Nora went on. "They're saying I'm relying on you, that I'm clinging to you to change my life. You didn't do anything wrong, but your presence makes them think things that aren't true. And I can't take it anymore." Victor went silent. He knew she was speaking in the heat of emotion, but every word felt like a blade slipping into the softest part of him. "I never wanted to make things harder for you," Victor said quietly, his voice dropping. "Then, Please don't come anymore. Not because she hated him, not because she thought he was a bad man. Nora simply felt herself shrinking under the weight of the rumors, and that shame became a distance she didn't know how to cross. Victor nodded. He didn't argue. He didn't try to explain. Respect was the only thing he could offer her. He turned and walked away. But before he could reach the stairs, Lily burst out of the apartment, tears streaking down her cheeks. She wrapped her arms around his leg before he even had time to react. "Don't leave like that," Lily sniffled. "If my mom is sad, can you give the bracelet back to me?" She pulled the purple knitted bracelet from her pocket, the same one she had given him on that strange blind date. She placed it into his hand with her tiny, trembling fingers. "Let me keep it for you. When my mom isn't sad anymore, you can bring it back, okay?" Victor knelt and placed a hand gently on Lily's head. It was a short moment, but it carried more weight than anything he could have said. He wanted to speak, but his throat closed up. In the end, he only gave her a small, quiet smile before walking away. The days that followed were a long stretch of silence. Victor returned to meetings, contracts, travel. He worked more than ever just to keep his mind from drifting. But every time he opened his desk drawer, the purple knitted bracelet was there, stopping him for a few seconds. Nora struggled just as much. She searched for new jobs, only to face rejection after rejection, because her employment record showed a sudden break. The rumors kept her from going back to her old center to defend herself, and the exhaustion clung to her every day. Lily, meanwhile, asked the same question every night. "Mom, he's coming back, right?" That small, sad question made Nora pull her daughter close and stay silent for a very long time. That silence, though no one said it out loud, became a turning point for all three of them, a turn leading towards something none of them could avoid. In the days after Victor walked away from that small apartment, life for all three of them seemed to stall. No one said it, but each of them felt the emptiness that silence left behind. For Nora, it was the hollow ache of pushing away the only person who had treated her with kindness that asked for nothing in return. For Victor, it was the quiet regret of respecting a request his heart had no desire to follow. And for Lily, she didn't understand the world of adults, only that the kitchen had fewer laughs than before. Even so, life has a way of revealing the truth at just the right moment, as if to remind people that good things don't always disappear just because we push them away once. One afternoon, Nora passed by the craft center where she used to work to retrieve a few personal documents. She had no intention of seeing anyone, but the moment she stepped outside, she heard someone call her name. It was Mia, a former coworker who was never close to her but also never the type to gossip. "Nora, I need to tell you something." Her very first sentence made Nora stop in her tracks. "I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. But you were wronged." In the next few minutes, Mia explained everything. The manager had used low productivity as a fake reason to fire Nora. Not only that, he had spread rumors that Nora had found herself a wealthy man and stopped caring about her job. Those rumors were intentionally circulated to justify his decision and cover up the favoritism toward a relative he wanted to promote. "You didn't do anything wrong," Mia said, looking straight at her. "The manager wanted to push you out. I know you never did anything to deserve that." Nora stood frozen. Shock, anger, and shame mixed into a single crashing wave inside her. For a moment, she remembered the look in Victor's eyes on the day she asked him not to come anymore. Sad, but without blame, and she realized she had reacted out of fear of being judged, accidentally turning Victor into the one who suffered a hurt he never deserved. For the first time in weeks, Nora felt she needed to stand up. She needed to speak for herself. She needed to tell the truth instead of letting others paint stories over her life that were never hers to begin with. She thanked Mia, took a deep breath, and headed home. Her steps were heavy, but her resolve was stronger than it had ever been. That same day, in a building a few blocks away, Victor received a small item lying quietly in his mailbox. The building's security guard brought it up, saying a little girl had dropped it near the parking area. And they thought it might belong to someone he knew because inside the knitted bracelet was a tiny note with half a scribbled line. "For you." Victor only needed one glance at that soft lavender color to know exactly whose it was. Lily's knitted bracelet. When Lily handed it back to him on the day Nora asked him to leave, Victor had kept it carefully. He had never dropped it or misplaced it, which could only mean one thing. Lily had taken it with her and accidentally dropped it near the building where he worked, which meant she had gone near where he lived, or at least wanted to send him something. Victor stared at the bracelet for a long time. Two feelings rose at once. Lily still remembered him, and maybe Nora had begun to think differently about him. His chest warmed in a way he couldn't quite explain. The next day, Victor stood in front of Nora's apartment door, without a bag of food, without a prepared speech, without the fear of being a burden. He came for a simpler reason. He wanted to stay in their lives, if they would let him. Nora opened the door, and this time she didn't avoid his eyes. Something in her expression had changed, less guarded, less shaky, less tense. Her voice was small but steady. "I know the truth now." Victor didn't say anything. He waited. "The manager made everything up," Nora continued. "He said I relied on you to justify firing me." She took a slow breath. "I misunderstood. I'm sorry." Victor didn't blame her, and he didn't look overly relieved either. He simply stepped a little closer, keeping enough distance for Nora to feel safe, then said slowly, "I'm not here to help. I'm here because I want to stay." Nora lowered her head, her eyes turning slightly red, but no longer from shame. She didn't hear pity in Victor's voice. She heard respect, something she hadn't been given in a very long time. Behind her, a small sound broke the moment. Lily peeked out, her eyes lighting up as if she had just seen what she had been waiting for all these weeks. "You came back." Lily ran over and wrapped her arms around Victor as if doing so would keep him from disappearing again. Then she looked up and asked a question that made both adults fall silent for a few seconds. "Can you stay longer today?" There was nothing dramatic in that moment, just a simple, childlike, honest question, but enough to piece together the parts inside each of them. Victor bent down and gently brushed Lily's hair. "If your mom agrees." Nora didn't answer with words. She walked to the table, opened a small drawer, and took out something Victor never expected her to still have. The purple knitted bracelet. She placed it in his hand so lightly it was as if she was afraid of snapping the thin yarn. No explanation, no long speech, just one quiet action that said everything. "I trust you, and I'm allowing you into our lives." That evening, the small kitchen felt fuller than usual. Victor stood by the counter, steadying a big bowl while Lily mixed the batter. Every time it splattered, Lily burst into giggles. Nora sat at the table, watching the two of them, and for the first time in a very long while, she laughed out loud. That sound made Victor turn. His eyes met Nora's, softer, warmer, no longer guarded. Outside, a light rain tapped against the old metal roof. But inside, warmth spread from the oven, from Lily's little hands kneading dough, from the way Nora looked at him. Victor watched the mother and daughter and understood one thing clearly. The blind date, where a little girl showed up in her mother's place, was the moment that brought his heart back to life. And maybe it was the way fate chose to bring them together.